Hi everyone, welcome to Squirrel Brain Stories. Just a little reminder right here at the beginning, we're going to be talking about heavy topics. Please make sure to take care of yourself, reach out to a friend if this triggers something in you. Make sure you drink your water, take your meds, and just maybe if you're not in a good place, today is not the day for this, come back to us later. Hi everyone, welcome back to Squirrel Brain Stories. I'm Adria and I'm here with Ange. And as you guys can see, we are finally back in the studio together in person. So excuse our sillies.
Yeah, we're a little excited.
Yes.
It's been too long.
Far too long. Ange, we've done a lot in the last couple of weeks with talking with Nico, talking with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing?
Oh, it's been rough. You know, I made two grown-ass men at Costco cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not on purpose. You know, I was having a hard day. And I just couldn't hold back emotions. And so I was walking around, you know, doing my shopping. And someone, said something to me. And then I was just started bawling and like, okay, blah, 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 I don't know what to do. And, like all this stuff.
It's okay. This was the goal of this project, was to get you to the point where you felt the emotions.
Yeah. And I think, so I'm a very analytical person, obviously, but not everyone else knows. So yeah. I have to see evidence. I have to see stuff. I have to process it. So I think there wasn't a lot of connection, except for, right after my mental breakdown last summer and, everything came to light and all the emotions came rushing forward. Well, then everything got shut away. And I think what I did is I needed to find as much information I could. I needed to prove as much as I could. I needed to, see if how I felt was actually justified.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but it didn't function like your mainstream media cult. It didn't. So living there, not feeling like it's a cult, then coming out and slowly realizing, oh, this was kind of cultish, but trying to reconcile that with, but it doesn't match the cults that the media talks about that are sensationalized. So how does my pain, how does my trauma, how does that fit into this?
Yeah. And especially when, there were a few indictments that came out of the original cases back in the 90s and early 2000s, but not everyone paid the attention that was necessary to this case to connect the dots. And I realize that now. And it just, so much could have been prevented if people would have cared a little more and connected the dots.
If people could have connected the dots, if they could have cared more, if they had handled those separate investigations properly. And we've touched on it a lot about not isolating children from, the adults in the house, not getting them to a safe location, not removing people from a room before they ask you why you're all bruised up, at 16, 17 years old, about to give birth. And your husband can go buy alcohol. There were a lot of missteps.
Yeah, I know. I was forced to get married at 16 years old. They took me across state lines in order to get me to marry me off. So the law allowed me to get married, but if someone that same age can't buy alcohol, can't buy cigarettes, can't buy weed.
Girl,
can you please explain to me why a 16-year-old can get married, but they can't buy cigarettes?
Don't even get me started, because when I start thinking about our military, I'm like, so you can go die, but you can't come back home and get a fucking beer?
Yeah.
That is the most asinine shit I've ever heard in my life. But
Buck probably knows more about that. Buck just retired from the military.
Congratulations!
Our producer.
And now I will make him more special Rice Krispies.
Yes.
But what I've noticed the most in you is that as this has gone on, for a lot of people, I think it would have paralyzed them to hear what Nico went through, to rehash what your brother went through, and even his current day dealings with your guy's stepfather. A lot of people would have cracked, and that's okay because this is a lot.
It is.
And you have a support system that not a lot of people have, but you also have this undercurrent inside of you, this overwhelming need for fairness and justice. And it's been incredible to, as this podcast goes on and as you get more information, you guys, the shit that's happening behind the scenes, I don't think we should talk about most of it.
Yeah, some of it we shouldn't talk about just
yet, because it may impact some things in the future. But this has gone from wanting to come to grips with your own path and experiences to wanting to be a safe place for other people to land, to taking justice into your own hands legally. There's no vigilante shit going on here. But to take that into your own hands and really spearhead it.
Yeah. And also I've been, reviewing all my notes and all the transcripts, and I'm trying to also identify gaps in systems, that allowed failures to happen, identify those gaps, find a remedy, and propose a few bills. I have 2 bills that I'm working on right now that I plan on proposing to wherever I need to. Once I have them more prepared, drafted, next step is figuring out who I need to talk to, who do I need to get these to.
Well, why don't we tell everybody what's the general scope of them?
So one of the bills that I am drafting to propose is No Child Left Behind. And what it is, so currently in Oregon, and I do not know about other states, but when a child is born in the hospital, their birth certificate is, generated, and then there's, they send the form to the Social Security people, and then their Social Security number is generated. Well, once they're discharged from the hospital, up until they're registered in a public school or, maybe a homeschool setting, I don't know. That is part of the stuff I still have to go and meet with people and interview people. But so from time of birth discharge to the time they're supposed to enter school, there is no correspondence. There's no connection. So if a child never shows up to public school or never register, I don't know about homeschooling, so I can't talk about that. But between the birth and the time they're supposed to go into kindergarten, if they don't show up to kindergarten, no one knows.
Well, and kindergarten is also optional the last time I checked.
I'm not entirely sure. I think in Oregon it's required. I think preschool is option, pre-K.
Oh, I think when I was still there in California, kindergarten was optional. You could just start at first grade.
Dang. So up until, they were then to start at first grade, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Then if they don't show up, no one knows. No one knows to go looking for them. What is the situation? Where are they? What happened to them?
Well, and I don't think anybody knows anyway, because if we don't go out of our way to register them, they're not going to come looking.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. So I work for OHSU. I work in the Cancer Registry. I've worked there for 26 years now. And I work with a computer program. I work, we have a database, and part of my job is to get a flat file that comes to us by the group that our software is managed through. They get this list from the Social Security Department every month, every couple months. It's supposed to be every month, but sometimes, but we're supposed to get this file. We get this file every month through this, mediator company. This file comes directly from the Social Security Administration office, and it gives me the date of death of all of the patients that are in our database. So there is a way for Social Security to relay information. So if they were able to get a report to the Department of Education or a national Department of Education, those patients that were born, all the children that were born can be cross-referenced. There doesn't need to be a whole lot of data, to prevent, people's privacy concerns. Just, date of birth, name, social, or whatever. I mean, it's, Social Security office already has all this information. It just needs to be connected to the Department of Education so that each child that is born can be verified that they attend school. Because like one of the other members in the cult that gave her testimony on a podcast, when they came up, her parents were migrants, and this podcast is public. So that's why I feel it's okay to talk about. But, yeah. And, her parents were migrants. And I think she said she had 9 siblings. They lived in a minivan traveling from state to state doing land migrant work. And she didn't see any college until I don't know how old she was. She was pretty old, maybe in double digits, until she finally went to school.
Do you know what the name of the podcast was that she was on?
Yes, it is. 'Cause I Want to Know.
'Cause I Want to Know. Yeah. And her name was
Angelica Conche.
Angelica.
Yeah, Angelica. And then her daughters also are on the podcast, Anna and Adriana.
Okay. So if you guys want to hear more details about that, check out 'Cause I Want to Know. Mm-hmm. And look for Adriana's name.
Yeah. So there's definitely issues that, I think a bill like that could, prevent, these kids falling in the gaps. Because, what happened, there was about 150 of us that lived within 3 houses. All the families that came, the children were pulled out of school and some were homeschooled.
Yeah.
And some were just given a book and, not given, just books if they were able to get it, and homeschooled themselves, gave themselves their test. And some kids, didn't homeschool at all.
Well, I'm incredibly cynical. I have doubts that anybody would be willing to take that on simply because the DMV can't even get their shit together, dude.
Yeah, but
I got a license here in Oregon. California still sent me a renewal. If we can't manage that in something that we force people to participate in every single day, how are we going to get them to care more about children's education than they do about keeping track of their citizens? How do we account for moving?
Yeah, I know.
How, because when you pulled your youngest one out of school further up north and came down here, if you hadn't registered him, they would have called and said, hey, where is he? You would have said, oh, we moved. They would have said, okay.
And that's it. They want to
make sure. Fucking it.
Yeah, I know.
Love for them to care more. My cynicism doesn't mean I don't want that for us. I want it. I have so little faith.
Yeah.
So little faith in people and their ability to actually commit to something.
Yeah, I know.
And not yours, obviously, but the powers that be.
I expect resistance, and that's why I'm prepared to make as much noise as I have to till this takes ground.
And it's crazy because there shouldn't be any resistance.
No, there shouldn't.
Because it's like Buck said, it benefits literally fucking everyone. Mm-hmm. You're keeping, young kids out of trouble if you're making sure they're in school.
Yeah. And because there's no eyes on this, the doubts have not been connected, he is living 0.1 miles away from a school at his current residence. Now tell me that should not be a concern to any parent that lives out there.
And just to refresh everybody, because it's been a while since we talked about him and his crimes specifically, we're going to go to slide number 2, our wonderful producer, Buck.
So one of the other things besides the bill that I'm drafting, I'm not exactly sure how to put this together yet, but I was in communication with the original detective that was on the case, the Oregon case that never got prosecuted. And he, I was talking to him about failures that he recognized during the time, because in the news articles he had, interviewed for, you could hear the frustration in his interview in those articles. And so when I reached out to him, I asked him, what were the frustrations with this case? And he just said it was, it was just a lot of information. He said it was in his top 3 cases in his career that he'll never forget. But he also told me that one of the main issues that this case specifically faced was the different silos, the no interagency communication. I mean, Portland, Police Bureau had a system, he said, that they had used where they tried to connect interagency. And we were kind of talking, and he proposed, he was bringing up an idea. And I guess this is a common, concern with officers and detectives, that the system, there's gaps. But if there's some way to create a database that every state has access to, and yes, because of privacy concerns, there's not going to be a whole lot housed in this database. But what it should house is every person that comes through a police station on a police report for an investigation, and then every child that comes forth through DHS or the police as part of an investigation, even while stuff is being investigated. And then the next column in that database would be the agency or the jurisdiction that report originated in. I hope I said that right, for fuck's sake.
It's okay. They know what you mean.
So at least the new officer or detective that is taking the new information, they can say, well, hey, it looks like there's something open over here in Deschutes County, Oregon. Let me give their agency a call and see if there's a connection here. You know how many gaps something like that would fix in this case?
Yeah.
And all the other big cases out there, when there's, stuff, all kinds of stuff,
Girl, I'm still crossing my fingers hoping for a very basic domestic violence registry. Like,
yeah,
you shouldn't have to go to trial. If your partner shows up and they're covered in bruises, your name should go on a fucking list, and that list should be public. Well, and I'm not fucking sorry for that.
And that was the other thing that, as I was digging through, let me find it. That was the other thing that just really fucking pissed me off so much. So a family member ended up being exposed to this cult again, via my parents. And during her exposure in life, living in this cult, she was sexually abused for a couple years. She was around 10 years old. Jesus. This man was over 20 years old. You know what he got? And it's public file. If his name is Jose Juan Hermenegildo. It's too long of a last name, but it's public record. He got 15 months in jail. And he did not have to register on the sex offender registry, and he was an illegal immigrant. Someone please fucking explain this to me, please.
I'm not laughing because
no, I know. It pisses me off, man.
Yeah.
Why are undocumented taking priority of our citizens and our children? Like, come on.
Why is anybody taking priority over our kids?
Stop being so fucking liberal, Oregon. You're fucking your own children. Sorry, yeah, I'm just so angry. It just pisses me off.
It's one of those things I realized years ago that as a society, we care so much about the birth of children, and then we stop giving a fuck as soon as they take their first breath. We really do. We stop caring. We tell, so future mothers and fathers, oh, you'll know the joy of parenthood. That person beats their fucking partner. Why would you want to force them to bring a child into this? To have another punching bag? They can't even be trusted with a pet. What?
I know.
And some people should never be parents.
And pets, have more rights than children do sometimes. Like,
people care way fucking more.
Or animal abuse is a felony. My daughters went to the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department. They reported multiple things. There were multiple police reports for things that they did. Do you think any of that ever passed the DA's office?
Girl.
Like, but animal abuse will get you will go straight on to a felony. It's like,
didn't Michael Vick get more time for dog fighting than fucking Brock Turner got for rape? That's our society. Like, you've seen that documentary, Don't Fuck with Cats, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you should watch that.
Okay,
Buck, you've seen it, right?
Can you put it on the list, Buck?
It's so good, but what drew people and made people realize there was a problem is because he hurt animals. Like, it wasn't him.
Was that the guy that was murdering the baby kittens?
Luca Magnotta.
In Canada? Yep. Canada? Canada. For fuck's sake.
Canada. But no,
Okay, guys, my primary language used to be Spanish, so sorry.
English is our first language, and we still don't know it. It's fine. No, but this is why I'm so cynical. We don't care about what's beyond our own four walls.
It is true. Because like, even, when I was bringing this project up to my dad, because, in case you guys haven't realized yet, there's the Squirrel Brain Stories podcast, but there's the Squirrel Brain Stories project. And that's this whole investigation thing that I'm doing. I'm trying to gather as much information as I can so I can provide a complete packet to the legal authorities capable and able to bring this up for a RICO case.
Since they couldn't do the footwork themselves. All offense intended.
I mean, if this is what I got to do to get people moving, then I don't care. I'm doing it. There is a sector, a splinter of the original cult in Portland that, after speaking with other victims, that there is a very high probability that a splinter of the original cult is still operating in Portland.
And we know who's heading that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have his name, his address, his business. Yeah, he owns the dry cleaners. So probably more money laundering.
Is it the same dry cleaners that they used to work at?
Nope.
No, a different one?
Yeah. So that's why this matters, because not only I need to get, just some peace and justice for all of these offenses and all of this horrible shit we all went through, but also I'm concerned about the people that are still in these situations, the people from our cult and all of the other victims that are still, in hiding, secluded from the outside world. We weren't the only one, we just don't know about them yet.
Exactly. And I know we talked about this like a year ago, but one of the reasons I came on board is because I would love down the road for us to be the resource that I want for people in cults to have. Mm-hmm. Like, I want it to be like an underground number. People just know to call, and we'll come fucking get you out, get you therapy. We'll help you.
There needs to be some sort of liaison advocacy service for post-cult survivors, because we were so isolated for so many years. We don't know how to fucking function in the outside world. We don't know how to manage money. How to integrate yourself.
Some people can't even fucking read.
Yeah. How do you integrate yourself back into society successfully and not fall victim once again like I did? Because of the cult predisposed me to a certain lifestyle, to a certain way I had to behave, and a way that I was expected to be treated.
Your toleration for abuse was all the way fucking up
because
here.
I thought it was normal. And look, for instance, even the example of my prearranged husband. Once I found the credit card fraud, $20,000 roughly, I brought it to his attention. I filed a police report. I separated from him. And then I began the process to file for a divorce. Then during the divorce, my attorney told me that I was responsible for half of the credit cards that he forged in my name And on that police report, I even had evidence that the police officer, Gresham Police Department, took a picture of the credit card application that did show a forged signature. So I am requesting a copy of that police report. I actually did that earlier today. And after the divorce, in between the bankruptcy, he allegedly used one of my forged or fraudulent credit cards to go buy a brand new car, a Kia Rio.
And do you know if that was repossessed when you filed for bankruptcy?
No, he had it. He had that car for a few years. But I included it in my bankruptcy because I never saw any of these statements.
And it's wild that they said you were still responsible. How can you be responsible for fraudulent credit?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. See, when I filed my police report, they should have given me a little bit more information than, well, this is a civil matter and it will be handled through your divorce.
Yeah.
If an investigator or someone would have called back to ask more questions, I would have been able to get them different credit card companies. I would figure out how they would tell me how to get, the statements. We would discover that the situation was much bigger than just those few credit cards that actually involved frauding a bank, frauding a dealership, causing me financial harm through a divorce via financial means.
Yeah.
And
I think it really speaks to everything that we've talked about, speaks to the strain that's on our public systems. Because, you're talking, let's call it $30,000 in fraudulent credit card debt. In the grand scheme of things, is that the worst they've probably seen? Do they think it's worth their time? Probably not, because they've got 20, 40 other cases they have to work through, just like social workers. But just like social workers, you talk about...
Somalians.
Somalians. Sorry, Minnesota.
Oh, goodness.
You guys deserve better.
No, but you talk about social worker burnout.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in recovery, I think my sponsor did social work. And I remember her telling me one day, she's like, I'm supposed to have 10 cases. She's like, I've got about 40.
Damn.
And I was like, holy shit. And this was a decade ago. And I can't imagine that it's gotten any fucking better. There is such a strain and a lack of people willing to do these incredibly necessary jobs. That's why when we talk about keeping track of kids and keeping them in schools, who's going to do that? Because it's not going to be the social workers.
And obviously the truancy law officers never did a damn thing.
Because when you find out that kids aren't going to school because they're being beaten or they're being forced to work, people aren't staying in those jobs. They see shit that they can't unsee, that they can't pull from their brains long enough to close their eyes without having nightmares. Like, they don't stay in these positions.
Yeah. No, I know. I did CASA for Douglas County for a little bit, and some of the stuff I saw, that was right before,
You were doing that when we met.
Yeah, and then my health stuff came up, and then that was a long haul, and then the mental health breakdown. So, yeah, but it's crazy, some of the stuff that they're exposed to, and they have to be okay with, because it's, okay.
When I worked with kids, there was some horrific shit that happened. And I remember going, I can't do this. Like, I was only 5 years in. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. It was absolutely horrible. And I was like, to do that to your own disabled niece, I'm out. I'm tapping the fuck out. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And just
crazy.
How do we keep people in those positions so that we can have lasting changes in these systems? The pay is shit for what we ask them to do.
And that's part of the main problem. If you pay them what they're worth, you're going to get more workers that actually are vested in what they do. And they're going to provide more fulfilling resources and better help to the victims.
But how do we get them paid what they're worth when the people who set the salaries don't see the value in the jobs that they're hiring for?
There needs to be a whole system makeover. Our whole legal system, our whole social system.
Girl, the whole of the government, top to bottom.
It's a total hurricane, a black hole. Like, you throw something in and you don't know what you're going to get out, you know?
It feels like the apocalypse. It just feels like everything is crashing down.
I mean, when I look at this case and I compare it to like the Epstein files, because I've done that a few times, so I'm like, man, if this guy would have been a little richer, our leader, he would have been right, you know, pretty close to Epstein.
Yeah.
And feeling the frustration that I have with everything I went through and the lack of help and awareness and services, I can't even imagine what it is for those victims. And then for everyone just to be brushing it off or not making it like, for fuck's like, oh, I can't even imagine that, how horrible that feels, because this feels so shitty. And that is like way more extreme.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. When we live in a day and age where someone's incredibly public murder is reposted, uncensored, and people don't flinch, we're sick.
Mm-hmm.
As a society, we're sick.
Yeah. It's like the people that they'd rather watch someone being beaten or getting knifed and recording it on their phone versus calling 911 stepping in. Yeah. Where's the courage? Like, can everyone grow some fucking balls? Like, stop being a bunch of pussies.
You know what? I'm going to be a self-proclaimed pussy. I worked in San Francisco.
Well, that's a different...
No, it was 5:00 in the morning. I got off BART and it was dark. There was maybe 3 other people on the street. That was it. And I had about a mile between the BART exit and the restaurant I worked at. I watched an old man get jumped by these 2 kids. And it was me, that old man, and those 2 kids on that street.
Oh, shit.
And I don't know what happened to him.
I know that cell phones?
No, it was a few years ago. I was not going to step in because I was in my 20s, a woman by herself. But it's that same thing. If I step in, I then replace that guy. And now I'm in trouble.
No, I agree.
And
but like,
I gotta go.
Did you, like, were you able to at least call?
I called 911 and I was like, this is happening. I don't know what street they're on now. They ran and I'm not going to look for them.
No, but that's the important piece, because people would rather record it with their phone than take that step.
Oh yeah, I was not. You couldn't have paid me to stand there and record that shit.
No, I think I misconstrued how I wanted to say that.
I'm just saying that immediate self-preservation kicked in. Yes. And it was, even if I'm going to call 911, I need to be as far removed from this as physically fucking possible. Yeah. Because if that guy's life is in danger, so is mine.
Yeah, because you're a witness now.
So is mine. Yeah. And it's very much, I didn't see anything. I'm not going to say anything. And I think we all want to believe that in the moment we'll do the courageous thing, the virtuous thing, we'll step in. But I think as a people, it's always me before them, you know?
Yeah.
And it's scary and it's fucking sad. And it's hard to admit that, like, yeah, I picked myself over some poor guy that was getting the shit beat out of him.
But in that situation, that was pretty much your only option.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's, you know, I'm not saying people need to be vigilantes. I let that come across the wrong way. I just, instead of recording with your phones, get on the fucking phone and call 911 to help your fellow citizen, you know.
Yeah.
Let's stop the recording. I mean, someone can record, but there's got to be some people, you know, calling 911 to get help.
And they're recording for the wrong reasons. They're recording to post it online, not recording to be like, hey, officer, here's the evidence you need.
Exactly.
No, but and then the mob mentality that someone else Like when there's 50 people watching something horrific happen, everybody goes, somebody else will step in. Somebody else will do the right thing. And then nobody does it.
Now I remember what I was going to say earlier. So I don't know what squirrel brain thing I got off sidetracked on. Sorry, guys. But I was going to say when I was doing this and sharing with my dad, what I was doing, what I was working on. And, he's a boomer. So they have a different mentality. And he was like, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, he's like, it was so long ago, just go on with your life. And I'm like, no, there's things that need to be held accountable. There is so much damage. Like all of the things that could have, like, I never had the opportunity to be a real child. I never had an opportunity to find what I wanted my career to be, what I wanted to I would have been a great scientist or investigator. It's just so infuriating and just violating,
And just to put this out there, it's not too late to be those things.
No, I know, but now I'm kind of comfy working from home.
That's fine. You could still take classes. You could take forensic investigation classes at the community college.
Well, I was in a forensic investigator class, and this was right before the divorce with the second husband, and all the crazy shit was hitting the fan. And I had to reach out to the college and tell them that I was going through a lot of stuff with my family right now, and I needed to take some break, but I would reach out as soon as I was ready to start back up. When I reached out, they had closed the program, and I was so bummed. So I had to transfer all of those credits to something else. And I'm like,
it's never too late.
I know.
You can still be whatever you want to be when you grow up. But I get your point. It's important because if somebody had done it before you, you wouldn't have suffered, and neither would your kids.
Yeah.
And I think what your dad's, I think what he's really missing is that more so than doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the kids that you had to leave there when you left. For the kids that were born into it years later, who are still there fucking suffering.
Well, and they're, listening to Adriana and Anna's podcast, it sounds like they both say that all of them are messed up. Someone died. I don't know how they died, but I don't know if it was OD or a suicide, but one of them died. And there's just all this trauma, and no one has gotten convictions because the men fled to Mexico, and then they came back, abused some more people, and then fled back down to Mexico. Mm-hmm. And so with allowing this failure in the system to continue, they're being forced to label all of these abuses as trauma and be okay with it and move on with their life. Instead of, being able to get justice and making sure these people don't do the same things to other people, none of that.
Yeah. And it's so hard to reach out and try and pull someone to safety with you when you don't have a feeling of safety in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know if it's possible, successfully.
That's why, again, years from now, I want to see us make something like that that's run by people that have escaped. Yeah. Because that trust that nobody has when they get out of a situation like that.
I know.
It's how do you learn to heal from somebody who grew up with, a mom and a dad in their house and went to school and had actual food and clean clothes? And how do you relate to somebody like that?
Well, and then how do you, you don't really, what takes so long for me, it just didn't happen until last year, but how long it takes you to recognize, if you even are fully able to recognize some, most, or all of the bad things that you suffered that you shouldn't have, it takes a while to be like, whoa, that should not have happened. And that person totally should have gone to jail. Yeah. And like, what the hell?
And it's fucked up because you have these statute of limitations when in reality, I don't have to go to school. I don't have to study trauma and recovery to know that it comes in layers. Because if everything washed over you all at once, you would crack. Like, I think your brain would actually malfunction and you would just be broken. Because how do you process all of that all at once?
I know.
Like, if you had to process your childhood with your mom, then your stepdad, then your first husband, then your second husband, if you had to process all of that all in the same moment instead of piece by piece,
And what I did go through was pretty bad. And that wasn't even the full extent. So,
and again, that was piece by piece.
Yeah.
You'd been going over it for years, for 8 years with Buck. Like, yeah, it's just a lot.
It is a lot. And, after discovering all of this stuff, it's just, after seeing it with my eyes and being able to actually process what I was exposed to, what I was, forced to, undergo, it makes me so mad that so many places failed us when someone could have stepped in. Like when I went to give birth at the hospital at Legacy Good Samaritan, if one of the nurses or the doctor that asked me if I was okay and if I was safe at home, the two instances when they came, I don't know if one of them was a social worker, 2 separate times they came to ask me about my abuse and if I was safe. If they would have asked the husband at the time, my prearranged husband, who I was forced to marry at 16 years old, if they would have asked him to leave the room, there might have been a likely chance that I would have asked for help, because I almost committed suicide when I was pregnant with that my first child. Like I knew I needed help. But if they would have cared, if they would have followed policy and, reporting requirements, mandatory reporting policies, like I could have been saved from 30 years of trauma.
Well, and I'd love to see an investigation into that, because
one will happen.
Cult leader's wife was also a nurse there. So I would want to see the connection between them and the nurses you worked with.
Yep.
Because they should lose their license if that's the reason that you weren't given the opportunity to be honest and to get the help that you needed.
I know. That's what makes me so infuriated. Like, if someone would have cared a little bit more, my life could have been way different. My children's life could have been completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the things the girls went through with their dad, and their dad was brought up from Mexico illegally by this cult.
Yep.
Like, all the things they could have all been spared from, So, yeah, about all the bad things, I just wanted to also say, I spoke with someone, had a little consult, and a lot of my issues are valid concerns. He said that the wrong email or wrong message. The thing with the Good Samaritan Hospital, that could be a case if I were to pursue it. ICE releasing my name as a confidential informant in the Oregonian newspaper could be a case.
What about their dirty agents?
Well, that's not looking at that. And then they also said that I do have a valid case to get my marriage annulled from the prearranged husband because it was a forced marriage and it was coerced through the cult. And mandated. And
it was outside of Iowa's state.
Idaho.
Yeah, it was outside of their regulations and what they allow.
Yeah, and I was 16 years old. And the marriage, the sole purpose of the marriage was to get him citizenship, because back then they gave you citizenship. It just wasn't permanent residency. So the marriage was a sham. The marriage was a fraud to get him papers. He made me lie at our immigration investigation or our immigration interview to proceed with his, his papers, his naturalization. I had to lie at the investigation about him bringing people up from Mexico. But now there's the indictment. So can you guys connect the dots and let's get this annulled and denaturalize that fucker? Come on, I'm ready.
You know what would be really cool? if they could also be held accountable for crimes that were committed against you during the marriage they should never have allowed.
I mean,
I know it won't happen, but that would be really fucking cool.
I have some calls out to some lawyers, so there will be more coming.
Yeah. We can't tell you guys about it because that would ruin the cases.
Yeah.
Sorry.
As you know, I'm sure everyone will learn about it at some point as things progress.
Yeah. But lawyers are always like, don't talk about it.
No, I know. Once it gets out in the news, though.
Yeah.
But I'll keep everyone updated as much as I can.
Yeah. But you found a lot of stuff that you can pursue.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from, the assault charges and all that, you've found a lot.
Yeah. A real estate empire of $10 million. Can you imagine? Like $10 million? I can't even fathom, you can't just have this money coming in and qualify for a home loan because you have this random money, $60,000 coming in every month, $1 million a year. You have to be able to justify that for a home loan.
Well,
come on, a real estate lawyer. Come on, give us some feedback. What do you guys think? Leave us a comment, in this post. Let us know your thoughts. Reach out, Squirrel Brain Stories at gmail.com if you have some questions or insights or resources or places where to point us. Ad in the newspaper was before the nonprofit was originated. So they're soliciting a nonprofit before a nonprofit existed. And, the youths. So you're exposing youths to whoever may call for your ad. Come on.
Because they don't care enough to send an adult.
Okay, let's go to number 3 really quick, babe, before we wrap up. I'm a finder.
Yeah, you
are. So yeah, that was kind of everything I wanted. I didn't get over, some of the stuff we wanted to talk about.
We have another.
Yeah,
we'll be right back.
You'll see us shortly.
We'll be right back. We haven't seen each other in a long time.
Yeah.
We had some ranting to do. Yeah, you know where the fast forward button is. It's fine.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up for this episode, you guys. Yeah. I want to thank you for following the story. As you can tell from, the content, it is a very important issue. I need it to gain traction. I need the right people to see it, to hear it. Please share it. Please follow. If you have any information, email us at squirrelbrainstories@gmail.com. If you are a victim of Back to the Cross or the Peach House Ministry or any fellowship under Manuel Taboada, nickname Memo, and please reach out to us or reach out to your local authorities, because if you have crimes that need to be reported that were never reported, Oregon has now a change in their statute of limitations. And even if your statute of limitations have expired, technically, limitations have changed. And there's also the discovery rule. So, feel free to reach out or contact who you need to. But after going through everyone I've been contacting, if you were a fellow victim of this cult, reach out. I have resources. I know who you need to talk to.
Yeah. Or if you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you have advice, or if you guys know of any resources to help people after they get out of these situations.
Yeah.
Definitely send those to us. We'd love to create a comprehensive list.
Yeah. Because as people are coming forward, there's more victims that want to come forward.
Yeah.
And I want to start compiling resources that, I can point them to and things that I've discovered.
Yeah.
So that's it, everyone. We will see you next time.
Yes.
In a few minutes.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.